What's up, everybody? Welcome to day 31, the final day of the I'm Curious to Know project. I'm pleased to welcome today's guest to the show. He's stayed up late. He's suffering from dad life right now, coming all the way from Andorra. Cam Wurf, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, Trev. Thanks. I wouldn't say I've stayed up. I've been here a few years now, so I've become very accustomed to Spanish life. And let's face it, at the moment, time and days don't really mean anything. So I've adopted a bit of a Floyd Mayweather approach to my daily routine.
Just whatever happens.
Get things done in a 24-hour cycle.
I like it. Well, I appreciate you being here. It's great to have you on the show. We've been trying to connect for a couple of years, or I've been trying to connect with you for a couple of years to have you and hear a little bit more of your story. We're at a very, very interesting time now, obviously. Before the show, you were talking about the circumstances that you faced in Andorra around COVID. Give us the synopsis of your lockdown during that period.
Yeah, man, it was pretty intense. It was a Friday. I remember that. Must have been 12 weeks ago almost now. And I went out for a long run. My wife, she dropped me in town. We live at about, so the main town's at about 1,000 meters, so 3,000 feet for the US guys. We live up at about 5,000 feet, so kind of like Boulder. So I start my run generally down there, do a bit of a loop in the flatter valley, and then head home. And I was going to do a couple of hours. And while I was on my run, I just thought, I might stop at the pool on the way home, because it's on the way home, and have a bit of a swim. And I've got a locker and everything there anyway. And that was, so I think she dropped me off at about 10. I got to the pool at about 12:15, and they said, "Cameron, you can't come in. The country's shut." And I said, "What do you mean it's shut?" Like they said, everything is shut. Well, they said it's not shut yet, but it'll be shut at 1 o'clock. So go home and get everything you need. And I was like, "Whoa, this is pretty drastic." And so I ran home and did what everyone does, raced up. It was funny because I think I was one of the first to know in this little town. So I walked up to my local store and bought like 6 blocks of toilet paper and everything else. And people are all looking at me thinking, "What are you doing, you dumb Australian?" Like bloody tourist. Yeah. And and then sure enough, by the end of that day, all the businesses were shut. The borders were shut. Obviously, it's Spain and France that we have a border to. So, 2 of the worst affected areas. And we were just told to, stay at home. And, it's a pretty advanced country. So kind of think Switzerland, I guess, with a Spanish flair to it. So, very sophisticated, but very relaxed. But they were very good very quickly with figuring out home delivery and things like that for groceries and everything else. So we never, ever had an issue where if you didn't want to, go outside and take all the precautions, you could easily get everything you needed delivered to the house. And also, we had really good supply. So there was never ever, I didn't need my 6 rolls of toilet paper, 6 boxes of toilet paper.
Still got a few left.
Yeah, I'd still got at least 4 of them left. So there was no issue with that. We were pretty well serviced. But no, I mean, we're not part of the EU. We're in Europe, right in the middle of it. But so we need to rely on our own health system and everything. And even as far as an athlete goes, we were told straight away. The first day we went out and trained normally, and that night we got a letter from the government, the Cycling Federation, saying, you guys can't go outside because if you crash and you need medical care, we might need that bed. And so, well, actually, that was interesting. They couldn't force us not to, apparently, through the law. Yeah. But we all said to set an example, because here it is like Boulder. It's a very healthy town. Everyone's very fitness mad. So if we were out there and everyone's not allowed to go to work, well, of course, everyone would have been out. So the athletes were, there's a lot of motorbike riders here and, different sports people, golfers and whatnot. And we were all asked to set an example. And, did a pretty good job. They got it under control, and now we're, pretty much back to normal.
Yeah. Tell me what that was like for you and your wife as you're, you're preparing for your child to be born, and obviously there's doctor's visits, there's, checkups, all those type of things. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I wasn't. So she had 2 months to go, basically, 8 weeks. And I wasn't allowed to go to any of those checkups or anything after that. And then we also got told I wouldn't be allowed to be at the birth, which at that point we thought about getting out of here. I mean, obviously we've got the option of going to either Australia or the US, which on the face of it, compared to what we were going through being locked down, it seemed like you guys had it wonderful. You know, we could go back and be in a house, have plenty of space, all of that. But Fallon was really determined to have the child here. You know, wanted to have a European little baby. And also we love this place. You know, it is a great health system and all of that. And I felt like the worst dad to be, husband you could ever possibly. I mean, when I wasn't allowed to be there, I mean, that part really rattled her and me, because I was like, far out, like foreign language, sending her in on her own, you know, to pop out our child. And I can't, at least if we're in Australia or whatever, and there's those rules, you can have the whole family in the car park, you know, ready to, with the in and out truck if you're in the US, and you know, ready to throw a party when she walks out the door. But fortunately a week or so before he was due, they said that you could be there just for the final bit. And that was funny. It wasn't actually that big a deal in the end, because she felt like she woke up one morning with contractions. She had an appointment that day, went and saw the pediatrician. She said, yep, he'll be here within 1 to 3 days. But they were also like, don't come to the hospital until it's coming, you know? Yeah. And she really left it till the last minute. She was out that afternoon walking the dog, and bent over to pick up the dog's crap, and the water broke. And she was a few hundred meters up the road, and I was at home on the bike, and she rang and said, oh, my water's broken. Can you come and pick me up? And I said, oh, I mean, it's already broken. She said, I'm embarrassed. I said, well, walk down the other side of the road. So she walked home and got off the bike, and I said, what do you think? And she started measuring the contractions, and I said, oh, have I got time to go for a run? She said, oh, I think so. And I got my shoes on and my gear ready to go for a run. And then she said, nah, I think he's coming. We better go. And sure enough, we went down to the hospital, and 3 hours later he was out. Wow. You know.
What a story. That's
so
cool.
We were pretty fortunate with that process.
And how much of the process were you able to be in there for? Like you mentioned, you were able to go into the room straight away and kind of be there with her through that last 3 days?
So that was the other bit. So you had to drop her off and then wait for them to say, yes, he's coming. Yeah. So we loaded up the car. We had the dog, took the dog. So dropped her off, raced the dog up to a mate's place. And that was just 5 minutes, 10 minutes away. And Fallon rang and said, no, he's coming. So you need to go and wait in the waiting room. And they'll call you when, you know, he's about to, you know, basically about to pop out. And, so I went and waited, and I was probably only waiting 30 minutes. And she went from 1 centimetre to like 7 centimetres dilated real quick. And and they rang me, and the phone rang. It was like, I don't know, like that there's that phone in the corner, and it rings, and you just look at it and you're like, shit, is that the one? You know, you ran over and picked it up, and some lady screamed at me in Spanish, and I'm like, I'm assuming she's saying come down. And then Fallon yelled from behind, come down, you know. Yeah. She was having, going through it all. And I was like, okay. And I dropped the phone. I remember not hanging the phone back up. And then when I'd done that, I realized I don't know where I'm going. So I got in the elevator and started going through the floors trying to find the maternity ward. And finally I got down to like -2 and popped out of the ICU. And that was a bit of a, you've heard about ICU, you know, like that's all people have been talking about for the last couple of months, and you sort of stop you in your tracks. You're like, bloody hell. And thinking about what everyone's been going through. And then I heard Fallon yell again, and I was like, this is the floor. Followed the noise and found her. And, and as I said, I was able to be there with her for that last hour. And, man, a good thing I was, because, I mean, fortunately, there was a midwife. I speak good Italian, so there was a midwife that spoke Italian. Fallon speaks pretty good Spanish, but when you're going through labour, pretty good Spanish kind of disappears. So she was able to speaks Italian to me. I was able to translate to Fallon, and I mean, I to be honest, you very quickly, you know, she was on her own. It's obviously a very natural thing, but I was very quickly not so. You have this image of bringing this kid into the world, but I was more worried about her. You know, I mean, she was in so much pain, and
Yeah.
she wanted an epidural, and they said it's sort of too late. And then she's like, "Oh, it hurts too much. I can't push." And I'd say, "Well, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to get him out. Like, he can't stay in there. Like, we've got to push." And then them talking about how to breathe, long, deep breaths out and so forth. And we had the perfect little natural birth, and just so fortunate with the whole thing. And not a word of English was spoken. It was sort of just how we ever dreamed. And I think the coolest part was they pulled him out. They put him on her. She got to nurse him straight away. And then when they were dealing with her second birth thing, they just handed him to me. And I was like I had not done no classes, nothing. I YouTubed how to CPR an infant and stop him from choking just before I went to the hospital that morning or that afternoon when I was on the bike. Because I thought, gosh, I should at least know that. And you just and we haven't had it. He hasn't been out of our sight once. There was no time where he was taken to a nursery. Yeah. It was just a very, I guess, as natural as it could possibly be here in Europe. I mean, they've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, haven't they? I mean, so I'm really glad in the end we ended up staying here. But it's just been us, no family, nothing like that. We've got a lot of friends here, so that's been great. And we've got a healthy little boy.
Very cool. Congratulations. It's such an amazing experience. We've been through it twice ourselves, and I don't know how you feel, but I was so impressed with Lauren and what she went through. And then also my thoughts immediately turned to my mum. I'm like, well, mums are incredible.
Yeah.
Mums are the most amazing things in the world. And that was what I thought. I'm like, how the heck did, they just go through so much, but it's such a cool experience.
I love it that you picked up on that, because that's how and you kind of feel like a bit of you're meant to be all nostalgic. Oh, my boy, I'll bring him back. Yeah, I mean, that was great. But honestly, I was just so, concerned about her. He was fine. He had 3 doctors that knew what was going on, speaking to him in Spanish. He couldn't do much. But, you really needed seeing what, Fallon was going through. And exactly, think about your own mum, popping you into the world. And, that to me was quite an eye-opener, and certainly a different perspective on pain when you see how that literally comes out. So
well, so our first our daughter was a natural birth, similar to what you're describing. It took a little longer than what you guys are talking about, but our son, my wife ended up having to have a C-section, and that was that was a traumatic experience for me. My wife's there having a panic attack, and they're like shaking her body to bring this baby out, and then I go over and I'm with the baby, and they're these tests and the measurement of the breathing and all of these things, and he took a little while to get the breath back. So then my heart's over here and my head's over here, and I'm like, holy shit, like, what do I do? Two out of the 3 people I love the most in the world are in this room, where I'm pulled in so many directions. So it's a it's a crazy time, but good for you guys. Congratulations.
Thanks. So
and how's he doing? So it's 3 weeks, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks now.
3 weeks, you expect a lot of them, don't you, when they come out? You're like talking to them, and you're like, oh wow, you're only a day old. I mean, a couple of weeks. Last night he was doing he was sort of using his feet, like pushing up, like doing a squat or a jump. So I was like, oh great, let's do that. And then his legs go limp, and you're like, mate, come on, like you can't just do 2. And you realize he's got no idea what he's doing. He's just figuring out the world. So their eyes open up and all that. It's crazy.
Well, you guys are figuring it out too, like how to be together as a family now with 3 of you and functions. So good for you. 2020 has been a big year for you. You are obviously reback in the pro tour in Team Ineos. Tell me about how that all came to be. It was, I think there was a bit of a. I think Richie even said, "Is this a joke?" When you
posted
he did back on the team. Tell me.
I mean, well, the last few years, I guess. Since 2017, started 2017, I went up and trained with Chris Froome, and just inadvertently, one of the guys that he was in Australia with to train with for a camp. I got called into a race because another rider was sick. Owen Dool was the guy's name, who actually I raced with at Geelong. He's still on the team. So I just got a phone call on what I'd never even had a phone call on WhatsApp before. I didn't even know that was a feature. Tim Kerrison, which is Frumi's coach, just called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to him in quite a while. I knew him from rowing days, like way back. But just said, "Oh, listen, what are you up to?" And I said, "Not much." He said, "Oh, would you want to come and train with Frumi?" And so off I went. And to be honest, at that point, I was a little bit over sport. I really wanted to get into finance and started more of a normal life. And but had a great camp with Frumi. Trained really well, and sort of both he and Tim said, "Look, you obviously are probably capable if you really want to do something." And I said that I'd done a couple of triathlons in my hiatus, my time away, and really enjoy that. And Tim said, I think you'd actually potentially be quite good at that, actually. Like, you like training a lot and you're on your own, so you don't have to deal with that pressure of being around in a competitive environment so much with team and things that you probably haven't dealt with well in the past in cycling. And so that was what sort of kickstarted that. And then obviously, things have gone from there. I was just able to be at all the camps and everything with the guys to then, 2018, it sort of progressed to, all the partners of the team and team giving me much more support, and more so 2019. But we'd also discussed me potentially racing again, all through that time. Just every now and then I'd be at a camp and a rider would get sick and couldn't race, so they were rider short, and they'd be like, "Oh God, we wish we could just take Cameron. He's just done all the work with us anyway."
Yeah.
And so the end of December, Dave Brailsford actually said, "Listen, Cameron, how about you come to the whole team camp," which I'd never been to, which was in Mallorca at the end of the year. And I guess that was a bit of a test just to see. I'd been in smaller groups with more the main guys on the team, and to see what I was like around the whole team. And I just blended in like one of them, as they said, and quite a few people, staff and whatever, said, "Oh gosh, you should just be racing on the team." I said, "Well, I'm focusing on what I'm doing and I want to win Kona." And but on the last day I sat down with Dave and I said to Dave that people have been saying that, and I said, "Listen, if there is an opportunity to race where you need someone to fill in, basically, like be a bit of a free role, on the team, so that I'm just always available. It doesn't matter what race, where, how, what, so you don't have to bring in someone else from another race and sort of change other people's, the filter down effect can be, quite a lot of moving parts and cancelling flights and doing all sorts of stuff if I'm always there and ready to go."
Yeah.
And he said that would be potentially quite a good thing for us to have. We often have guys get injured and whatever and go to races light, and and then people have to do extra, and then they get sick, and so. But the problem was the team was full. They had 30 riders, and then January, only a few weeks later, one of the guys for Sal Kirienka he's had a heart problem for a while, and decided that he'd had enough. He didn't want to, push it anymore, and sort of would like to potentially stop. And I think at the time it was more, well, we'll just leave him on the team for the year, and then he'll stop at the end of the year. But they said, "Well, Cameron's there. If you're happy to retire, we'll bring Cameron in." So he said, "Yeah, I'll stop then." And that was that. So they found a spot for me pretty quickly. And so that was how it came about. It wasn't about me wanting to go back to be a bike racer at all. It was more me wanting to potentially be of value to the team that have obviously been so good to me and so supportive, and things have gone so well for me. Not that, I was like adamant to give back to them in that way, but I felt like I could contribute to them that way. And then it would also help me, in the long run with where I'm trying to get, because I'm training with the guys all the time. Why not see what it's like racing with them a little bit as well? So that was that. But it's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it, when you're like, oh, I just vaults back into Team Ineos of all teams.
Just roll up.
Haven't raced for 6 years, but just cruise back into the world tour with the best team in the world.
And jump straight into the races too. Like you've raced a few days, probably more than most guys this year already.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I mean, when they decided to do it, they said, right, there's a race in Australia in a week.
Yeah.
If we can get all the paperwork done, will you go back to Australia? It'd be a great story. It's your hometown. Or home country, and but also the big thing was, let's find out where you're at. Like you haven't raced for so long. We need to get on top of where you're at and where you can be useful. What we can learn from where you're at with that, and how you're feeling with the guys in a race. And so that was great. I was in LA. I was training with Geraint Thomas and Ben Swift, another guy on the team, and. So I actually ended up racing before them. We started the camp in the 1st of January, them as riders on the team, me doing Ironman, and in the end I ended up racing before they did. And it was, it was certainly it was a shock. I mean, I don't know what I expected. I mean, I guess I felt, because I've been training with the guys, the best guys in the world, not only in this, in the Ineos, but Richie Port, mentioned before. Trained with him a hell of a lot as well over the last few years. And so you're with the best guys. So you sort of have a bit of confidence in yourself. You think, well, if I can hang there, then I should be fine. But then you remember the different parts of racing, moving in the bunch, the accelerations, the surging, the tactics, people just not letting you go where you want to go, the danger, all that stuff. And, was that side of things I was quite nervous about. But, fortunately, the first race back, it was pretty windy, and we were confident it was going to split pretty early. And we figured, well, it's always best to be the bat and the ball. So I lined up right at the start. I was right on the front row, and as soon as we turned left onto that road and we got a bit of a cross piece, Luke Rowe told me to smack it in the gutter, and away it went and split to smithereens, and I was in the front, and I was like, well, I'm back, baby. This is good. Yeah. It hurt, though. It really, really hurt.
What was the reception like from the other guys? Obviously, the team was excited to have you there and kind of test the waters a little bit, but were there other people you'd raced against before, or just people who kind of looked at you like, oh, here's this triathlete wanker who's found his way on the team in the world?
Yeah, I think sort of people figured the way I left the sport was that I wasn't good enough. I chose to sort of not do it at that point in my life. I felt like I was wasting a productive period of my life, and that was why I wanted to stop and go to the US and try and get a job in finance. And because I graduated with economics and finance, and that was always my dream, to one day work on Wall Street. So I knew that from an ability point of view that I was more than capable, but I guess others had formed some sort of opinion, because you don't generally just choose to leave the world tour that early and then just be able to sort of come back. But I've always felt that if I wanted to, I could come back. I guess now that I'm actually back in the world tour, I realize how bizarre that would sound. It is so hard to have a place in there. But so there was a lot that, just ignored me. There was a lot of others, like a Lachlan Morton, who I'm really good friends with. Richie was there, of course. Andre Greipel, who's someone that's always kept in touch with me. Quite a few guys that had kept in touch with me over the years that just stayed in touch and also followed me improving in triathlon, were genuinely happy for me, that were, wow, this is really cool, Adam Hansen. But there was certainly a lot that sort of just, you back, how you feeling? Good. About the same as you, I guess, But then it's funny, because then when you put it in the gutter and you split the field to pieces, and then it regroups, and you got people with their tail between their legs because their race could have been over. Yeah. People then come up to you and they're like, oh yeah, g'day, Wurfy. Yeah, good to see you back. Yeah, it's like you never left. It's like, well, it sort of worked out that way, hasn't it? So
did you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder? Did you think like, okay, I have to kind of prove myself a little bit? Obviously, the team was looking for your progress, but did you kind of have that chip on your shoulder a little bit in that first day?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to be a flop. Far out. I knew there was a lot of people watching me. I knew there was a lot of people, probably pretty keen to see me not do well, be in that first group that got spat out the back. So yeah, I was pretty pretty on edge to, but the last, I guess, few years, that's where I've really, training with those guys has given me so much confidence in my own ability that I have been very fortunate that I've been pretty consistent with my performances. And I realize now that you do the work, and if you've done the work, it's not on the day, it's the work you've done the weeks before that'll deliver the performance. And I knew that I'd consistently worked hard. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be easy, but I felt like, I've just got to be confident in my own ability that I'm going to be fine. And in the end, it did hurt a lot more than I expected. I mean, I hadn't done accelerations like that for, exactly 6 years. I mean, we don't do that stuff in training because the guys don't need to, because they're accustomed to it now, and as I used to be. And then in the end, the plan was to make the race as hard as possible. So that's why we were splitting it early. We split it again. And then in the end, we had a guy come, was second in the race, was so close to winning, young guy, Pavel Sivakov, who lives really close to me here in Andorra, just down the street. And another guy was fifth. So it was a great result for the team, and which is most important. And, it was just business as normal, so that felt, felt good.
I recall reading that you put the shoes on and you ran back to the hotel. How true was that like?
Yeah, that was part of the deal. I mean, my coach, Tim Kerrison, he said that if you're racing with the team, the one condition is that the last day, provided there's no issues with travel, you need to run a minimum of a half marathon, whether it's the end of a small tour or 1 day race. And so, the hotel was exactly 21K from the finish line. So I put the shoes on and was heading back, and the other guys rode. And I got held up. I was doing some stuff. I had some family there and saying hello. And then anyway, I took off and I ended up getting lost. So I actually ran 30K after that race. So, so that sort of became a bit of a thing. And also, I guess it just showed everyone that, I'm still 100% focused on Kona. I mean, that is like the big thing that drives me. It's not about me coming back to want to be, a cyclist, and it's not even a comeback. I never really left. I never really felt like I left. I didn't carry on about retiring. I didn't carry on about any of that rubbish. I mean, I just stopped. And, and I've always believed that I could be there. And, but I'm a bit of a dreamer. It was probably a bit of a pipe dream thinking that way, but hey, it worked out. You got to dream it. You got to see it first before you can make something happen. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's obviously a very unique story. It's a very unique kind of tale, and I'm glad to hear that Kona is still on the radar, and that's the big dream, and that's what you're driving for. You have a pretty interesting career in triathlon, let's call it. In 2015, I recall, I was actually living in Vancouver at the time. Cam Wurf shows up at Ironman Canada and basically self-sufficient. You just kind of took it on yourself to carry your own nutrition and hydration. You kind of didn't really know what you were getting yourself in for, but you had a stellar day. You kicked everyone's ass there. But I love the story of the Starbucks kind of coffees in your biddens. Tell me that.
They weren't in my biddens. They were in my transition bag. So I had one after the swim. And that came about from Richie Portnoy for his birthday. A couple of years before, we'd ridden 400K. And you get to a point where you can only eat so much food, especially sugar and whatever. And Richie said, I heard somewhere that iced coffees just have a lot of electrolytes, a lot of sugar, a lot of fat. They'd be perfect. And he said now he just made it up, but right. It was just we thought maybe, why not? But we had them and we felt great. We started just having one of them every hour or two, and we got through that ride without a drama. So it's sort of become my go-to on a hard day is a nice milky coffee. And I mean, I got to say, no offense to the US, to the Canada, America/Canada, but they're nothing on our iced coffees in Australia. It's even the Starbucks caramel frappuccino, they are not the same, but they still got the same. They got the sugar and everything. So I thought, right, I'll get out of the swim and I'll have one to line the stomach for the bike. So I chugged a 600 ml they're bigger than that. They're big. In transition before I get on the bike. I remember it was pissing with rain and cold. And I'm like, it's horrid. I put on my raincoat. I remember getting on the bike and getting out there, and you go sort of right towards Vancouver, and you do a bit of a climb, and then you turn around and you go back the other way. So I saw all the pros, women and men, and I was like, they're all in like tri-suits. And I'm there I had my tri-suit on. I was in that, well, actually I had a top and little pair of shorts and a top, I think. But but I had a raincoat on because it was freezing. And I was thinking, what are these? Sure enough, later I've ridden through all the age groups, rode through the women, and then you see guys on the side of the road, and I'm thinking, far out. I doubt there's too many guys riding harder than me here. So I don't think, and I'm still cold in my raincoat. But anyway, I got almost, I think, to the lead. I think there was one guy I didn't catch. And then got to T2, and I could not wait to get to T2 because I had another Frappuccino there. And, and so I necked that in there and then headed out on the run. And then the next target was midway of the run because I knew I had another one waiting for me right there. So, 3 of those caramel Frappuccinos. And, I ended up coming 9th that day overall. So obviously beat all the age groupers and qualified for Kona and as an age grouper, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I love that story. Just the neck and the Frappuccinos. Don't advise it for anyone who hasn't done it. Don't do the camera work.
I've never done it since. That's for sure. But the reality was, I guess, you get on the bike, you sort of ease into it, and then on the run, I wasn't trying to break any records. I was just trying to survive, and that was the only thing I knew that I could survive on that was potentially easy on the stomach. I do remember, I think, having to stop for a nature break in the back end of the run, so I think it might have gone through me a bit, but. It worked. It got me out of trouble.
When you first started that race, did you have ambitions of becoming a triathlete? Was it something that you just thought, I'm going to give this a shot because I've always kind of been interested in it?
Yeah, well, the deal was that year. When I sort of decided to stop, that's when Cannondale had said to me, "Listen, Yaman, like you're obviously you're capable of still competing." And I understand you want to go off and do something else. And I'd spent some time in the US at that point, and they were like, "You're probably seeing the stars and all the glittery and glamour of here. But if you do want to go and get a job somewhere else, it's better if you have a job." So I had a contract already with Cannondale, and which I would have walked away from. But they sort of said, "Listen, we'll just let you do some brand ambassador stuff for us." And one of those brands was Segoi, which was the Canadian brand. And they particularly, the people that worked there, they thought that I'd be good at triathlon. So they asked me to do Oceanside, which was a half earlier in the year, and I'd never obviously done one. And I actually loved that. But then I thought that was it. I was like, bugger that. Obviously didn't train for it. I was hurting for about 2 months later. And they kept saying, Cam, you should do an Ironman. I was like, oh, God, no way. Anyway, I was at a Cannondale sales meeting, which must have been in about June, and there was a guy by the name of Bonner Paddock who was there, and he'd done Kona 2 years before, and he had cerebral palsy, and he broke something like 28 bones in his feet, and 2 years later there was still 2 of them broken.
Wow.
Anyway, and I heard that story. I said to Jamie, the Segoi lady, I said, "Jamie, sign me up for the next Ironman." And she said, "Well, Whistler's in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, and we've got a big activation there. We could probably get you into that. Like, Cam, you should have given us some notice. Like, why don't you take this seriously?" I said, "No. If that guy can do an Ironman with cerebral palsy, I don't deserve the right to train for this thing." So that was it. I just fronted up pretty blind, and it was more just a thing to do, as far as like, wow, this guy's done it like that. I just want to see what it's like, basically unfit, obviously my unfit is a bit different level to most people's. I'm not saying that I hadn't done any exercise, but I certainly didn't want to prepare for it. And, but man, I loved it. I loved like the half. It was double love. The good bits, the bad bits, everything. I just thought it was just the coolest experience ever. I've never been so excited to spend $1,000 on an entry fee to go to Kona or on anything in my life the next day at the roll down.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, right? When you do, and it's different for people who have kind of spent their life trying to get to Kona, but that whole ceremony and the experience and getting called up on stage and signing the document and paying the check, and it's kind of a pretty cool process. Now, tell me what it was like going to Kona your first time out as an amateur.
Well, ironic as it might sound, a couple of weeks later, I was mountain biking. Had a mate come over. We went to some mountain bike festival, and being an idiot, was doing this downhill course, something that was way above my pay grade, and stuck my foot out and got jagged on a rock and pulled it back behind me and snapped 2 bones in my feet, in my left foot. And so, that needed to be reset, like fully displaced. So I was in a moon boot until, I think, 8 days before Kona. And they're like, oh, Cameron, look, just come along, just enjoy it, because I was in Canada. Everyone, again, had their activation, everything there. I was like, bugger that. I'm doing this thing. I mean, if this guy can do it with if Bonaparte can do it with cerebral palsy, I'm going to do this race. So I jumped in and did an okay swim, considering I hadn't swum. Obviously, I could ride okay. I remember blowing up big time. I remember catching, it was similar. I was catching all the women, caught all bar one, which was Reef. And I remember getting quite close to it, about 15K to go, and the helicopter was there. And then she started pulling away from me because I just blew up big time. I hadn't trained for a few months with this moon boot on, but no excuse. I mean, she's phenomenal. I mean, obviously she's a phenomenon, and that was just so cool, like getting close to her and seeing her go away from me. And then I had to get on the run, and I was like, well, I can't quit. So I figured worst case scenario, I'm going to break my foot again. So I tried walking. That actually hurt more than sort of shuffling. I was sort of shuffling, jogging / was keeping your feet as close to the ground, and a high turnover was best option. And I ended up finishing before the sun went down. And I got out on the Queen K before Jan got to the, off the Queen K and on the run. And so I just come up Palani, probably only got a couple of K down the road, and he came the other way with a car and everything. And I remember seeing him, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I wouldn't mind doing that one day. And that was sort of, I guess, when it planted the seed. So I'm glad that I went through it and went there and saw it because, definitely. I mean, I've always followed the event. I've always loved triathlon, just never did it. Because Australia has always been a very successful country, from Greg Welsh and obviously then Mac and Crowe and PJ and other guys that have been competitive there. I've always been a huge fan of it. And, so that was the moment that I was like, you know what? I do want to be out here racing you guys. That would be really cool. So, yeah. And
then tell me what that was like when you lead off the bike. You roll into transition first, you lead off the bike onto the run. And growing up as a kid, so my dad was a triathlete. I did my first triathlon as an 8-year-old. We went to Kona in 92, watched Welsh. He finished 6th that year with I think he had an appendix surgery a few weeks before. Yeah. I was enamored with the sport. I used to play triathlon in the backyard, dreaming about leading the race, and you'd practice it and you'd run around the block and you're leading Kona. Tell me what that was like for you. Like, tell me, what was that experience?
I can't lie. I mean, I'm the same. I mean, I remember even like a Chris Lieto who you watched, get off the bike and lead for so long. But yeah, I mean, well, firstly, it was amazing I was even there. I mean, 2017, as I said, 2016, I sort of tried to take it seriously. It was a disaster. I kept getting injured. And, I'd look for a job in finance, and I'd found one in LA, and I was excited to do that. The reason I was back in Australia was sort of enjoy the summer before settling down and being a normal person and working, whatever you had to do to get to the top of that business. And, so that was sort of that. And then obviously got this crazy phone call from Tim Kerris and come and train with Froomey, and that was that. Now, the big thing with Tim was, look, the first year, just getting to Kona will be great because we need to find out what the race is all about, how it works, all of that, what you need to do. And so the qualification system then was on the world rankings, and easier said than done. I mean, I didn't have any points. I didn't race until I think March or April that year, which was South Africa. I got a few points there. I ended up then doing Cairns, and I got a bit of a chunk there, enough to give you a bit of a sniff, that you could maybe get there. and then bombed out at Nice and Zurich in Europe. And then in between, after that was so Nice must have finished, or Zurich must have finished. Oh, that's right. They were a week apart. I did both of them.
Right.
I did Nice, and that was when the tour finished. And then I was about to drive over to Zurich, and Froome rang, and he said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "I'm off to Zurich." He said, "Oh, do you want to come and train with me for a couple of weeks? I'm doing a camp until leading up to the Vuelta in Châtel." And I was like, "Yeah, why not? I got an Ironman this weekend, but I'll do that. Then I'll pop up, And so that's what we did. And Fallon was with me, so I did did Zurich, went terrible. Went up with Froome, and there was one race left, which was Sweden, and I had and I had to get second to get in the top 50. And I had an amazing camp with Froome. Just gave me a huge. I remember him just saying to me the last day, he said, "Listen, mate, like you don't need to do any more than you're capable of doing. You can do this." And I was like, just the power of someone saying like that they believe in you. I mean, that makes you feel pretty good. Sure enough, went there, came second, qualified for Kona. I'd entered in Wales. I already planned on not qualifying, so I'd entered in Wales 3 weeks later. So I won that. So I'd already basically qualified for the next year's Kona.
Yeah.
But getting to Kona, of course, I didn't have any ambitions to be fastest on the bike or anything like that. I just wanted to be in the race, and had a terrible swim. But fortunately, so did Sebi and Lionel. Lucy passed us, or Lucy didn't pass me. She passed me in transition. She got out of the water. She was underneath my armpit, and she caught us. And I had to pass the women. I don't think anyone's gone from out the back of the women's race to leading the men's race in Kona. And and obviously found Lionel and Sebi out there, and thought, "Oh, we're fine then." Sebi always gets to the front. Mustn't be that. Yeah. We mustn't be in too bad a position here. And sure enough, we caught them on the climb to Harvey that day. Yeah. And I remember Jan and I thought, I wonder if people do banter in this sport. So anyway, he was the day before we ended at check-in. He came out and he stopped and said hello. And I was walking in. He was looking at my front wheel, and I said, he said, "Oh, interesting front wheel." And I said, "Oh, it's just meant to be windy tomorrow." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, forecast. I mean, any wind. I mean, I said, I'm out there for 180K. I don't want to blow around. So, yeah, I got a small profile."
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. Oh, I don't think it's that windy." I said, "Okay, cool." Anyway, we're going up the climb to Harvey, and I'm going past him. He's wobbling around, and I slowed right down as I went past him. I said, "Hey, mate, how's that front wheel working out for you?" And he looked at me like I just told him I'd murdered his children. He could not believe that I had the audacity to say something to him. Yeah, because apparently I'd heard he rules with a bit of an iron fist. And if you can get under his skin, it can be, work out pretty well. And obviously, after that, we turned around, and I just kept pushing on. It wasn't that I really did much, but, everyone else sort of slows down. And, we got that bit of a gap. And then it was the three of us. Sebi rode across to me, and Lionel as well, and because they didn't handle going down the hill very well. That was where I got a gap. And I thought, "Oh, this is cool." And so then I just tried to keep encouraging them, to be honest. Like, let's stay together. This is great. How cool is this? I get to ride with Sebi. I mean, I was a huge fan of his particular. I didn't know much about Lionel. And then Sebi dropped off. And I was like, damn, must be going all right here. And then Lionel started to slow down. So I rode up beside him. I said, "Come on, mate, 20K to go. Let's hang in there," thinking, wow, this is could set him up here really well. He could win this. I mean, I knew I couldn't run. And, he dropped off. And I remember, last couple of K, I didn't want to look back, but last couple of K, I heard motorbikes behind me. So I had to look back, and man, that was just like going into T2 alone. I mean, that was something that kind of definitely had dreamed about, watched it on TV and thought how amazing that would be to lead out in the run. And, I'd have to have the worst running technique to lead onto the run. Actually, I don't know, has Starkovitz ever led off the bike in Kona?
I think so. I don't believe so.
I probably definitely had the worst running technique ever to lead onto the run at that point. But, obviously all the guys passed me after that. But
Yeah, what a
Did
cool
the best
experience.
I could. Yeah, man, it was. And obviously then from that, you have to believe that you can be competitive. You have to believe that, I mean, in the last few years, there's only been a few guys that have ever led the race on the run.
Yeah.
So, people talk about, other guys that come second and third and whatever. Yeah, I mean, phenomenal. I've never even come second or third or fourth. But the reality is to put yourself in a position to win that race is not hard, not easy. You know, it's not easy. And I think that that's one thing I have got up my sleeve, and it's probably been the reason why I've improved over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Talk to me about the banter. I want to hear about the banter. You're a magician at the banter. Euros don't really get it. The Americans really struggle with it. Canadians seem to struggle with it as well. And you're a bit of a troll, let's be honest. Tell me about how that plays into your psyche and trying to get under people's skin.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I don't really do it to get under people's skin. I just try and do it to add a bit of flair to the sport. I mean, I guess I don't even know how it really, I guess the whole yarn thing, that's sort of how it started. And then he started just personally, giving me a bit of a ribbing just when we're in communication since. And so I guess it's kind of stemmed from there, and they're not very good at it. And I think that me sort of instigating it gives them confidence to try and, get him. And they're definitely up in their game. I mean, Lionel has improved out of sight. Sebi, probably the biggest improvement in the banter department. And, and Jan, of course, as well. I mean, even, making fun of me at the awards dinner, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that it's part of the sport, which is good. And that's, I mean, that side of things is what makes sports interesting. I mean, we can compete and there's that side, but there has to be, it's always good if there's the guy that everyone wants to see get beaten, but can be proud of him if he does well too. And Jan, after Kona this year, sent me a message and just said, there's a lot of people that talk the talk, but, it was really impressive to see you actually back it up, on the weekend. And although I didn't have the greatest race, I mean, I did the best race I could. And the guys that beat me, I mean, you got two guys that had won before and two guys that have been second before. So I didn't deserve to be in any of their seats. You got to go out and beat them, and I wasn't able to do it on the day. So personally for me, that was the best I could possibly have done that day. I was wrapped with what I came. Just trying to, I mean, the sport's just changed so much since I've been around, since 2017. Since, I mean, look at the course record, it's just got faster and faster, every year. And that's really exciting. And really the swim hasn't changed much. The run hasn't changed much, but the guys have all learned to ride their bikes quicker and still be able to do the others quicker. And I'm pretty proud. I mean, it's not like I pat myself on the back and think, wow, look at what you've done. I mean, personally, I would prefer to be 10 minutes ahead of everyone. They never improved. But I think it's telling that someone like, say, use his name again, Starkowitz, I mean, no one reacted to whatever he's done on the bike, yet he claims that he's like the greatest ever on the bike. It's like, well, okay, what have you actually changed? What changed when you were doing all that? So whereas I think I feel like I've been able to do it in quite a human way that they've seen, and they've gone, oh, wow, that must be possible. That's look at what we're doing. That's train better. That's and man, I mean, I think personally, I just know there's a lot more people interested in the sport now. Particularly even in the cycling world, the guys that are really into it. Like just real intrigued by it all, and all now have a friend that does it and know about it, love talking to me or telling me about that. And and I love that. I mean, that's just fantastic. Just making it, a bit more of a, spectator friendly sport.
Yeah, it definitely adds some personality. And I think back to the, you think back to the glory days or the good old days where you've got the personalities that people could really look up to and respond to, the Mark Allens and the Dave Scotts and the Tinleys and those guys. And then, even
and
Walsh
they still are. And they still are.
That's
the thing. They still have that enigma. You go to Kona and Dave Scott's there. You're like, whoa. Welchie. I mean, he only won it once, yet, he commands a massive presence, only. I mean, the way he did it was incredible in an era where, he was just the underdog, the Aussie, and came and upset the apple cart. Obviously, Crowe's just the ultimate class act of a person. But that's exactly right. And and trying to create that again is it's good. I mean, people seem to really be able to relate to us all now, which is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, it's one of those unique sports where we're all on the same course together. I mean, that you can't really put yourself away in a corner. I mean, we're all out there doing the same thing.
Can't avoid it.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. This has been great. I feel like we've got many chapters we didn't cover, but this has been fun. It's been fun to kind of reminisce and regale some of your tales and get an inside look into your journey back to the Pro Tour and your journey as you chase that Kona glory. So before I do let you go, I've got 3 questions that I've asked all of my guests, and I'm going to throw your way.
Normally you get given these in advance. These are
easy. These are softballs. Okay. So first one, what's one thing that's changed for you during this isolation period that you want to keep once we move past and go into this new normal?
Oh, okay. I was going to say a kid, but of course I'm going to keep him. Yeah. Busyness. I mean, I haven't really as far as training volume goes or what I do communicating with friends or whatever, hasn't really changed. My daily, I haven't been able to go to a swimming pool, but I've done more gym or something else. But you've got so much free time, and you've still got food in the fridge and you're still keeping up with everything. So, yeah, I think whatever the busyness, whatever the hell it was that I used to do that used to make me think that I was busy, I'd really love to have got rid of that.
Well, this might lead into question number 2. What's one thing that you thought was important before that you're happy to leave in the past?
Damn, as I said, yeah, I guess probably, that really, I guess traveling, I really appreciate where I am.
That's a good one.
I don't have any interest in traveling anywhere, to be honest. I love it here in the Pyrenees. I think about Tassie, and I think about being there, and Lord Howe Island, where I grew up, and obviously going back to the US and so forth. But as far as like going to Greece or going to Korea or the Maldives or I don't know, some sort of holiday, no interest whatsoever. So travel. Yeah,
you heard it first. So we're going to move all Ironman races to Andorra, and they start at Wurfy's front door.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great.
But not
Yarn's just down the road to Verona. He's only 2 hours away, so we could sort of probably meet halfway. Yeah,
love it. I'm going to guess your answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's been your most memorable moment of joy during this period?
Oh yeah, I mean obviously, yeah. I mean, okay. Job is obviously having, but I think just the look on my wife's face when I said he's out, he's out, and just that relief and that, that emotion you just cannot replace. I mean, to see that after what going through the whole birth, that was just that moment with her was pretty remarkable.
It's magical. That's awesome, mate. This has been great. This is I think the perfect way to end my streak here in May. 31 days in a row. I can finally take a rest for tomorrow, shut it down for a day, and then we'll see what's next. I know, right? Summer's here. This has been great, mate. I look forward to staying in touch. I look forward to following your journey, meeting the little fella one day, and I wish you and the family all the best. And thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
Go get some rest now.
Thanks.
Good on you, mate.